I'm married to Sue. We've got 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. They're all in their 20s now.
And career-wise?
I did 41 years as a constable up to inspector in the Metropolitan Police, joining in 1970, leaving at the end of October 2011. And now I do insurance investigations.
Okay. And you live close to the church?
Yeah, I'm only a couple of streets away, so this was my local parish church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how long have you been coming here?
29 years,
Right.
I think. Yes, because we started coming probably just before the eldest child was born, and he's 28 now, and 29 this year. It's about 29 years, yeah.
Okay. And was that because you'd moved into the area, or what prompted you?
No, I was in the area. I used to live in Gerrards Close. Okay. I went to Christchurch Cockfosters before that. When I moved into the area, the route I came in took me past Christchurch Cockfosters. I didn't know this church was here.
Right. Okay.
And it wasn't until I came to get married to Sue did I find out that I wasn't living in the parish of a neighbouring parish, but this one.
Okay.
But then after we got married, we carried on at Christchurch for a year or so. Yeah.
Okay. So just kind of going back a little bit, had you grown up in a Christian family, a church-going family?
Well, I've always gone to church,
Right.
but my parents didn't really go to church, only high days and holidays. They went to church sort of Christmas, Easter, never more than about 5 times a year, probably less. My father was always digging the garden, and my mother was always preparing Sunday lunch, but they always insisted that I went to church. Okay. And my mother would call out every Sunday through the kitchen window, say a prayer for me.
Right.
So I quite easily got up the idea that you couldn't pray outside church. From that,
so you had to go to church to say a prayer.
To say a prayer. Yeah.
Okay. And so did that continue all through teenage years?
Yes, I was an acolyte through my teenage years.
What's an acolyte?
Well, you gown up and carry the candles.
Okay.
And that's very important because, we thought that time there's no Bibles in the pews, and the Bible was paraded by the vicar. Then there was the cross and the 2 acolytes, and we all turned in to face each other and read the Bible from the middle. Well, always the priest read the Bible in the middle of church. It was an Anglican church.
Yeah. Okay.
In Surrey.
Okay. And at that time, sort of in your teenage years and so on, how would you have described your faith and your understanding of the Christian faith?
Well, I thought I was a Christian just by the fact that I went to church. But as an acolyte, you'd sit up with the choir, and people I sat next to usually got the Times crossword out and did the crossword during the sermon. So I thought it was the sermon wasn't needed by the acolytes and the members of the choir, who were the elite, only for the people who sat out in the congregation. So I was completely wrong about everything.
Right, okay. So, but I mean, you had a belief in God.
Yes.
How real and sort of personal was that in your sort of daily life?
It didn't affect my daily life.
Okay.
In fact, we weren't really encouraged to read the Bible at all. When I came up for confirmation in the Church of England, we had a little book to follow, and we had to learn the name of every item of the priest's, the vicar's robes, and every part of the church, to name them fully.
Right.
And then we would do a prayer list, and the vicar prayed for that. Anglican church.
Right. Okay. And would that be how you describe your faith now?
No, I changed. In fact,
tell us about that. What sort of brought the change on that?
It was in 2003. It sort of started.
Okay, so you were coming here by then, yeah?
Oh, I've been coming here for years, yeah.
Okay.
But you see, at that time, I thought I was a Christian, and I had no idea I wasn't.
Right.
So I thought that the laws we had to follow, sins, mirrored the laws of the land. So if you're a law-abiding person with the laws outside, which was easy being a police officer, then I came to church on a Sunday, and that was it. That was it. So I had no idea about sins of gossiping and tale-bearing and the many other sins. I just did not know that they existed.
So you're saying in your experience it's possible, as it was for you, to be coming to church week in, week out, and to think yourself a Christian, but actually to be missing what it was all about?
Well, there was no relationship between me and God at all, and Jesus. I thought we could only pray in church, right up to, certainly around the year 2000. I was still thinking that if I prayed the other side of the door, that was a much less powerful rocket prayer up to heaven than inside the church. So why bother to pray outside? I thought I said it all on a Sunday, and I thought if I said all the prayers on a Sunday, had an hour's relationship with King Jesus on a Sunday, that was all right. I've got a nice tick. And that would be...
set you up for the week.
It was okay, yeah. And of course, I'd been brought up with the Book of Common Prayer and the associated service book. So we had the same same parts of the Bible we studied every other year. Yeah. And it was so focused, we never looked at the Old Testament at all. Thought the Old Testament was totally irrelevant to modern life. And I jumped the rails completely and got most of the things at that time, looking back, wrong. Okay.
So how did things start to change for you?
Well, we did the Rick Warren course here as a house group. And it was about, it was pondering, what on earth am I here for? What is my purpose? Why was I born where and when I was? At the same time, the cleaner at the police station, the same weeks I was studying, purpose-driven life, it was called. The cleaner was telling me that I had some very strange ideas about things like you can't pray outside church and things like that. And we both telling each other we were wrong. But eventually the penny dropped. And then the actual moment was on the 16th of December 2003 when the cleaner insisted that we both prayed down in my inspector's office at Holborn Police Station on our knees and say the sinner prayer.
Right, okay, so what's the sinner prayer?
It was praying that there was a wording that you accept Jesus as your Lord and Saviour and that you reject evil and sin. So the wording was she produced it was very similar to some of the confirmation wording. But I think that was really the turning point.
So was it at that moment, or had it been leading up to that you begin to get a different understanding of what sin was?
Yeah, it was a long, slow process. It wasn't a sudden download of information. No. It took over a period of time. Since Christopher was here, I actually started to think. So my heart started to soften a bit and had softened enough to actually start this personal relationship with Jesus and started praying regularly every day. And
even outside of church?
Yeah, anywhere. I walked the dogs in Trent Park, prayer walking and things. Yeah. And soon after that, at the police station, we started to we started to meet as churches together with my role. It's something that the police could do, call in a range of churches. And then we had a little morning breakfast and we cut up a map of Holborn. Well, it was the Borough of Camden completely. And then each individual church would actually go away and undertake to pray for those streets. So even when I left the police, I carried on. So if I'm walking the dogs, I might pray for Gerrard's Close and Lake and Heath. And if I'm doing an insurance inquiry down in London North 1, I might look at the road sign and pray for the residents of that road as I'm walking through to do my inquiry. Yeah.
Okay, great. So going back to this moment with the cleaner at the police station when you pray together.
Yeah.
And which you can time and date. It's very specific to you. Very.
Well, I'd actually forgotten.
Right.
But the cleaner sort of said, "Well, let's pray and ask when it was," and then you back check what shift I was on and if I was in the office on that particular day.
Right. Okay.
So it was about, I think 6 months later we went back and reviewed what the day was. Well, I didn't make any note of the day itself. Yeah.
Okay. So after that event, what happened next?
Well, I jointly formed with a Pentecostal pastor a prayer group at Holborn Police Station, and we called it Holborn at One. And we were getting to double figures in the conference room. So 1 o'clock every Tuesday, we met there to pray and study the Bible. And 90% of the time I led. I felt inadequate, but I think a lot of the things I did was hiding behind my rank as a senior police officer, so it wasn't level. It was staff looking at a police manager. We even sort of got the chief superintendent to come along on one occasion. He was a Christian. Around a few years later, I got moved into street gangs, and then we had no answer to street gangs. But on occasions, when things got a bit heated out in the streets, the chief superintendent, myself, and a couple of others, if they would pray in the chief superintendent's office for the youth of Camden. And I saw prayer answered because in the 3 years just over 3 years I did street gangs, no child was killed. Mm. However, there was an amazing near misses where one young person was stabbed in the left ventricle of the heart. And when that happens, death is usually within a couple of minutes. There was an ambulance passing. I didn't have to call the ambulance. The ambulance carried this teenager from William Hills into a local hospital. As they were going in the entrance, a heart surgeon was taking a shortcut through accident and emergency. And he said, right, straight into surgery. And after surgery, he said that he nearly bled to death. Wow. So that was an answer to prayer. Yeah. Another one, a firearm went off in Queen's Crescent, and the bullet deflected, and the bullet lodged between another teenager's skin and the skull itself, and stopped there. So the velocity had been taken off. But how close was that to a dead teenager? And 4 days later, he was out of hospital, back at the pupil referral unit because he was a bad lad.
Amazing.
So they were just two examples of answer to prayer. I was convinced of it.
Yeah. Just going back a bit for you, when you were saying around this time that you had the prayer with the cleaner and so on, that Christopher had come here and you'd started listening.
Yes, because Christopher came a few years before that, yeah.
Yeah, what were you hearing? Were you hearing things you hadn't heard before?
Yes.
What were you hearing that was different?
Well, the main thing was this personal relationship, direct, between me and Jesus in prayer, the importance of prayer. You didn't have to pray through a switchboard, the Virgin Mary or a saint in heaven, didn't have to redirect it. Mm-hmm. You could pray anywhere, as opposed to just inside church. Mm-hmm. And relationship was a moment by moment. Mm-hmm. If I didn't pray, then it certainly looked as though I was trying to live life my way and not what Jesus wanted for me.
So you're saying that the Jesus that we read of in our New Testament
Yes.
is as real to you as he would have been to Peter or John or whoever it was that was listening to him, walking around with him 2,000 years ago?
Yeah, very much so. And suddenly, there were some other strange things happened. I found that I could read the Bible in church. As a teenager in high church, it was almost as if I was dyslexia.
Right.
The lines would jump about on the Bible. And yet I knew I wasn't dyslexic because I could stand up in the Old Bailey, Crown Courts, Magistrates' Courts and read from my notes and never had any problem at all. And yet they had this very interesting thing that I couldn't read the Bible. And the other interesting thing was I couldn't understand the Psalms at all to save my life. Didn't understand them. Now, most days I read at least one Psalm. I think they're most wonderful. Yeah. And I don't understand why I couldn't understand them before. Okay. Yeah. So that, to me, proved the lifting of the veil, this wisdom that only Jesus can give, the ability to understand the Bible.
That's great. So that's not an academic thing, it's like a spiritual thing. Yeah.
If I hadn't been giving evidence in court, reading out to the court, which is a far more precious situation, because whatever I say is going to be questioned immediately by the barristers, without any problem, it didn't make any sense at all. So at that time, prior to 2003, I was reading here, but I virtually had to follow the words. Bear in mind, it's bigger print as well. I had to follow it, and it wasn't an eyesight problem. I had my eyesight checked, I had everything checked out. That was fine, because I had to do some more than just local opticians. I had to pass through police eyesight tests and checks and things like that. But it's only when I read the Bible, what is this all about? Didn't understand it at all. Now I do. Now I understand why I didn't understand it.
Just one last one. Would you say that it's possible for anybody to have the kind of personal relationship that you now have with Jesus?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's a gift from God. Jesus loves us, and we reflect his love.